Now, we already talked about seasons 1 through 7 of Thomas and Friends, and the ups and downs it has faced throughout the 2 decades it ran for. But what if I were to tell you that we were supposed to get a spin-off show focused on a group of characters we met in season 6? That's right, we are talking about Jack in the Pack, the one and only Thomas spin-off. Jack in the Pack is quite an interesting deviation from what you typically expect from this franchise. A spin-off show that is more focused around construction vehicles? I guess it wasn't that weird back then, since Bob the Builder was around 4 years old when Jack in the Pack was being made. I remember being a little kid and borrowing the DVDs for this spin-off show a lot, specifically On Site with Thomas, and I was happy to see the characters in The Great Discovery and the CGI series, with Jack showing up in King of the Railway, and then later Alfie, Oliver, Max, and Monty in Legend of the Lost Treasure. It blew my mind. Though I never really collected toys for the characters. I remember having a wooden railway Alfie and a take-along Byron, but that was about it. This is going to be a different video compared to the last few Thomas videos. I'm going to structure this video a bit differently since it's only 13 episodes compared to the typical 26. And it's just one batch instead of many seasons. I'm going to be talking about the behind the scenes for the spinoff, the soft pilot 2-parter in season 6, an overall overview of the spinoff, ranking every episode in the pilot, and maybe talking about the canceled episodes that we didn't get, and thoughts on the characters. But now, let's get into this interesting bit of content of the Thomas franchise. Jack in the Pack was a byproduct from the global exposure that Magic Railroad gave the brand, especially in the United States, which makes sense given that the movie is very American in terms of its usage of words, though that's a story for a video I already made. Because of the exposure, Galen Entertainment wanted more Thomas content compared to the 3 to 4 year gaps that the show used to have. They had ideas for a spin-off focusing on characters other than Thomas, and ended up going for construction vehicles. During the production of season 6, they created a soft pilot for the spin-off by creating 2 episodes focused around the vehicles, which explored Jack's first day on the island. After season 6, Hit Entertainment bought out Galen, and they weren't fond of the idea of a spin-off focusing on construction vehicles, because it would be a competition for Bob the Builder. But since they started pre-production on the spin-off series, they made an agreement. 26 episodes were made in mind for the spin-off, but they greenlit 13 to be released on home media, with the scripts adjusted to bring in Thomas and Percy. The 13 episodes were made alongside season 7, and were released on home media in 2006 with the US getting 3 DVDs that contained the episodes, one of which was a compilation DVD, and the UK got 2 DVDs, one of which was a promo DVD. So first we gotta talk about the 2-part soft pilot episodes that were in season 6 before we get into the 13 episodes and the characters. So the general plot of this pilot is that the pack is trialing a new construction machine, Jack the Front Loader. We go through the first day for Jack, where we see the new characters and Jack's first job on the island. And then in part 2, we get to see Jack go through a heroic act to help Thomas and is brought onto the team. Now we could look at this 2-parter as an episode, but instead we are going to look at it as a backdoor pilot, which is an episode, or episodes in this case, of an existing TV series that is designed to introduce new characters and storylines with the intention of spinning them off into a separate new series. So how well does this 2-part soft pilot work as a backdoor pilot? Well, the storylines of the pilot are about what you expect from Thomas, I would say. Machines doing jobs and learning lessons and or getting into accidents. The main difference is that they are construction machines and not trains. But I think the main thing about this pilot is to introduce us to the new characters and make us care for them enough to see them in their own spin-off. And I would say that some characters work and some others don't. Jack is the character who worked the best since he was the main character of the soft pilot, so we learned who he was as a character, and he had a character arc of learning not to jump in unless it is needed. Max is another one who I would say works because he is the bully character and we need someone like him in the soft pilot. It helps that he got an iconic introduction scene.
Suddenly, a huge dump truck roared by. "Max!" Alfie cried.
But the other characters in the soft pilot I don't think really work as well when it was being shown. They all suffer from the same problem of not having the screen time to really make them memorable aside from Jack and Max. Alfie is the one that was close to working because he does have a personality in the soft pilot and is important to Jack, but still it doesn't really work for the same issues that the others have. I'm sure I am being too harsh given that Thomas episodes in the classic era were about 4 minutes long, but given that the show is known for its characters, I think it could have been better. Overall, I think that this soft pilot is far from the best it could have been, but that doesn't mean I hate it. Sure, I think it would have benefited from having more time with the characters or giving us an extra episode to have us really see more of them, but clearly this soft pilot was enough for kids to buy toys of these guys, and in a post-season 5 world, that's all that really matters. It's still good episodes of the show, but soon suffer from the problems that season 6 exhibited. Not the best, but enjoyable ones.
As Thomas steamed toward Tidmouth Sheds, he felt very happy. Yes, he said, "Welcome to the pack, Jack."
Now we can talk about the main show, with the spin-off, with the 13 episodes we have. Let's go over the way the show was made. I think one of the best things about this spin-off is the props of the construction vehicles. Now, we all love the engine props, because they are the characters we know about and how far they take the model work with them. But I think that Jack in the Pack is one of, if not the best part of this era of the show to utilize the models and show off the scale. Each model of the pack is much more complex than any engine character in the main show, even compared to the engine models that had more going on like Harvey and Diesel 10. These models have many more working parts like a real machine. Kelly's string retracting and her arm extending and moving. Each wheel that is on Byron moving and making the caterpillars move along with them. The pistons that Jack and Alfie have that move along with the arms. And even the fact that Oliver has many arms with different functions like a drill, a wrecking ball, and a claw that have their own moving parts that we see on screen. It's all very impressive to see. This also goes for the set design of the spinoff. Now I said in my classic era video that my favorite look of the show is the brighter colors of seasons 1, 3, 4, and 7. Those seasons give the vibe of a storybook coming to life in a way that some of the other seasons don't really give to me. Jack in the Pack was made alongside season 7, so it has the same color palette as that season. So already I think it looks pretty good. But something that makes it stand out from season 7 is that it is more focused on showing us the construction sites and the roads of Sodor. It's a visual contrast compared to the railway lines that we have known for so long, and I quite like that. I think something that is very clear about this spinoff compared to the main show is that there is very much a different style of directing. Seasons 1 through 7 of Thomas were directed by David Mitton, but the spinoff was directed by Steve Asquith, who would be the director for the next 5 seasons. There are things in these episodes that are rarely, if ever, in the first 7 seasons of Thomas, like vast zoom-ins on the characters' faces, the camera panning to show what's happening and then stopping to have us focus on a major character of the scene, and how certain scenes will be sped up to make the scene more fast-paced and fun. I think that these new additions that Asquith added to the spinoff were all great additions. His directing style to me feels like Thomas, but with more going on, and it makes these episodes fun to watch and follow. Another thing about the spinoff that makes it fun to watch is all the destruction that happens in it. One of the best aspects of Thomas are the crashes, since they were impressive and look cool, especially in the model era. I think the destruction in Jack in the Pack are impressive. Sure, you got a few that are standard to what you expect from Thomas, like the accidents in Jack Zones Up, the tortoise and the hare, and A Happy Day for Percy, but in other episodes there'll be crashes that would just blow you away, and knowing how big the props and characters are make it even more impressive.
But it was too late.
One thing to mention before we get into the episodes is the score of the spinoff. The score for Jack in the Pack was done by Robert Hartshorne, who composed season 7 in the US. This was his first contribution to Thomas in the UK, since he did the score for the spinoff, and would then take over as composer for the series from season 8 all the way to season 19. I will go into my thoughts on his score for the Hit era and Nitrogen era when I get to those seasons, but for Jack in the Pack, I think he did a really good job. The overall vibe of the score is relaxing, songs that feel nice on the ears, and that want you to relax with the characters as you watch them do their job. I get this vibe the most from when the Pack theme plays, where it has the horns we associate with Hartshorne's music, but the main instrument in the song is the guitar, which sounds nice on the ears. Overall, pretty solid score, but I would be lying if I said I would have been more interested to hear Mike and Junior's take on the characters' themes in this spinoff. Like I said in the beginning of the video, there are 13 episodes for this spinoff, but there are originally going to be 26 episodes. I will go over the 13 episodes we have right now, and go over each of the cancelled episodes since we have the scripts of these episodes thanks to Twitter user Ben Gosling. Also, I'll be going in the order of the US release since that is the release order I am used to. The first episode is A Visit from Thomas, which is a pretty good start to this series, I would say. The first half shows us the Pack more and how they work with the certain jobs and functions they have, and it gets exciting at the halfway point when Oliver digs up some dinosaur bones at the site. It shows us the typical structure of the Pack episodes, with a more calm first half than a more hectic second half. For a starter episode, I think it was pretty good. Next is Jack Owens Up, which is the worst episode of the spinoff if you ask me. All that really happens in this episode is that Jack knocks over a pile of slate, Ned accidentally runs over the slate, and then Jack owns up for what he did. It's very basic, and nothing exciting really happens in this episode. I guess one of its saving graces is that Ned is in it, but other than that, this is definitely the worst episode of the spinoff. Next is On Site with Thomas. This is definitely the episode I think will stick with kids and people who watch it for the first time. This is more of an ensemble episode, where we focus on the pack and not on one specific character, and how they really think of who is the most important. It also has one of the best crashes in the show. I also like the lesson of the episode, that there really isn't a be-all end-all best machine. Definitely one of the best episodes of the spinoff.
Patrick, scolded Miss Jenny. Were you bragging about concrete again? I might have said something.
Next is Percy's Scary Tale, which is a pretty whatever episode overall. The first half of the episode is just clarifying to us that Percy and Alfie are similar and are both scared of the ghost story that Kelly tells the pack and Percy about, but then it gets exciting when it focuses on Max and Monty and they run in with something in the fog. It's not bad, just not all that exciting of an episode overall. Would have chosen a different episode to replace it. Next is Kelly's Windy Day. This is an overall fine episode. It's about Kelly losing his confidence when he gets knocked over by the wind, but I feel like Kelly shouldn't really be the character for this type of story. If it was someone like Ned, I think it would make more sense, but this isn't a bad episode since it had a cool crash, and I like the second half with Kelly saving Isabella, despite the wind blowing hard. But I definitely would have switched this episode with one of the cancelled episodes I will talk about later in this segment. Next is A Happy Day for Percy. This is similar to Percy's Scary Tale, where I am not really a fan of the first half, since it just shows us things like Max and Monty being careless, and showing us how Byron doesn't feel special because no one notices his work. But it is carried by the second half, where Alfie has a near-death experience thanks to Max and Monty being careless, and we see Byron try and rescue. Basically, if you have a near-death experience, you just save the episode. That's just a rule. It's not bad, but just like with Scary Tale, I would have switched this one out for another episode in general. Next is Thomas's Trusty Friends, which is no doubt the episode people would call their favorite of the spinoff, myself included. Part of the reason this episode is so many people's favorite is the crash that is in this episode. The chimney is the size of a person, and they needed the crash to be done in one shot, which apparently they were able to nail. There is also no moral in this episode. It literally just Ned wants to knock over a building and Oliver cannot knock over a building. It's a very funny episode to watch. It helps that Oliver trying to knock over the building is like the funniest shit ever.
Stand back, if you please, called Oliver. Said Oliver. In no time, Oliver was fitted with a bigger wrecking ball. But still, the wall didn't fall down. He aimed very carefully, and he swung with all his might. But the wall didn't fall down. Oh, bother, said Oliver.
Next is Alfie Has Kittens. This is an episode that confuses me because Max and Monty are calling Alfie small throughout the entire episode when he really isn't that small. I mean, compared to Jack, I'd say that Alfie is bigger than him. If they said he was more narrow, then that would make more sense, but small isn't equated with the width of a thing most of the time. I do like the ending of the episode with Alfie trying to save the cats because we are a cat channel and we do not do anything wrong with them, but just one that I feel got lost in translation. Next is A Tale for Thomas. This episode isn't bad, just one that doesn't really do much for me. The episode is just the tree falling down and the pack needs to prop it back up. It's pretty basic. Next is Percy Helps Out. It's another episode I think is overall just pretty fine. I like that we see Nelson carry Thomas to the works, but I feel like this would feel more exciting if Thomas and or Percy weren't in every episode of the spinoff. Like if Nelson heard Thomas was in trouble and that was the first time we heard Thomas's name in the spinoff, and then we see him on the side of the track, then that would be more exciting. But this is a whatever episode overall. Next is The Tortoise and the Hare. This is basically a retelling of the same story, just with Thomas characters, but I like this episode because it's watching Max and Monty basically be jackasses, while Buster is just chugging along being the imaginative optimist he is. Not the best episode, but it's pretty fun. Next is Thomas and the Moles. This one is pretty good, even though it's your typical kid story plot about Buster not feeling useful and then he finally feels useful. I just like this one because I like Buster, plain and simple. Finally, we have Mud, Glorious Mud. I like this one a lot more in terms terms of the sets and overall look of the episode, but I do like how it shows us more about Isabella, and it's definitely the Isabella episode I prefer over the 2 other canceled episodes. Speaking of canceled episodes, let's talk about that. Like I said at the beginning of this section, there are 13 canceled episodes, and reading some of them, I can understand why they were canceled. Episodes like The Grass is Greener, Treasure Hunt, and Alfie Has a Secret are very by the numbers and generic. And then the 2 other Isabella episodes would have been interesting, but I think Mud Glorious Mud does a lot more for a character and was probably easier to make. But there are a few episodes I would have chosen over some of the ones we got instead. The first one is The Importance of Being Patrick. The episode is generally about Patrick feeling like he's being taken granted for until Miss Jenny gets a phone call about holes on a concrete path. This would have been Patrick's debut episode in the spinoff, and it would have given us world building since he talks about Miss Jenny's father. The next one is Kelly's Heroes, where Jack doesn't really take advice from the other machines, including Kelly. But when Isabella asks if Kelly is going to help Jack, Kelly instead lets him learn the hard way. I think this would have been a better Kelly episode to put in the main roster, since it gives us a look into Kelly. The set would have been cool since it's an embankment, and they have an Oliver and Ned side story that sounded fun to watch unfold. The final canceled episode is Jack's Snow Rescue. A bus full of children are stuck, and Jack is fitted with a snowplow to go and rescue them. I think this one would have been cool to see with how we would see the pack in a snowy environment. Overall, I think while some episodes are cool in a spinoff, some of them and some of the canceled episodes could have been better, and I would definitely have picked certain episodes over others. Now, let's talk about the characters in this spinoff. While Thomas and Percy are in this spinoff, they are characters made for this spinoff. Jack, Alfie, Oliver, Max, Monty, Kelly, Byron, Ned, Isabella, Nelson, Patrick, and Buster. I like that aside from Thomas and Percy, all the characters are new, and we don't need to rely on old favorites to see them or learn more about them. Even back in the soft pilot in season 6, we mostly just followed Jack and the going on of that pack. I'll go into their personalities of the characters and thoughts about them to make it easier to follow. Jack is the main character of the spinoff, though surprisingly doesn't have the most appearances in the spinoff, which surprised me when researching for this video recently. Jack is a front loader who is kind and caring, but can be rather impulsive. This personality is similar to Thomas if I were to think of a character Jack is similar to. Thomas is someone who is also nice and caring by the time of seasons 5 and 6, but still has a bit of cheek in him and can be somewhat impulsive. So seeing Jack have that same personality just doesn't really make him stand out as much as some of the other characters in this spinoff. Part of me wonders if they made him similar to Thomas because he is the face of the spinoff. I mean, Thomas worked as the main character of the show, so having someone similar to Thomas would make kids love him as much as Thomas. I also think the lack of episodes that have Jack also doesn't really get us to show us more sides of him. The only episode where we see Jack be more than just kind is in Jack Owns Up, where he's worried about being sent back to the yard after he knocks over a pile of slate.
Blistering buckets, said Jack.
I like to think that he doesn't tell anyone about this because of what happened in the soft pilot, where he was impulsive and got into an accident because of it. Overall, Jack is a fine character. I just think that some of the other characters are more interesting. Alfie is an excavator who is small, kind, and doesn't mind getting dirty or mucking during jobs. He also has friends with Jack and has near-death experiences. Yeah, this is basically Percy. In fact, the episode Percy's Ghostly Tale makes comparisons between Alfie and Percy.
Alfie is small, so is Percy. Alfie is green, so is Percy.
Now, I wouldn't mind this if Alfie had more going on, but compared to Percy, he doesn't really stand out and feels like a shadow to Percy. You compare Alfie as kittens to Duck Takes Charge, and it's not a contest to who is more memorable. I will say this about Alfie. I like his friendship with Jack in this series. It's clear that Jack and Alfie look up to each other. Alfie looks up to Jack after Jack stands up to Max, and Jack looks up to Alfie since Alfie was the first proper friend Jack ever made when he joined the pack. There are other small things that show their friendship in this spinoff, like Jack wanting to save Alfie when he is sinking in A Happy Day for Percy, Alfie asking Jack what is going on with Ned and Jack owns up, and there are the POV characters in On Site with Thomas and A Tale for Thomas, with them starring the discussion over who is the most important and being the characters who first see the lightning tree. While I don't love these two, I do like their friendship in this spinoff. Next is Oliver, and I really like Oliver. Oliver is an excavator like Alfie, but is kind, hardworking, never complains or gets impatient, but when a job never goes his way, he can get really annoyed. Oliver is a standout for the variety he has. We see him getting annoyed in Thomas's trusty friends. We see his kind side in many episodes he is in, and we could tell he's a hard worker because of how he talks about himself in On Site with Thomas.
Oh my, no, said Oliver politely. Digging the foundations is the most important. And that's what I do.
I also love that he has so many arms to play with. After watching the spin-off, it is very clear why he is one of the few characters who came back in the CGI series. Next up, we have Max and Monty, the characters that got the most appearances in the spin-off. They are both dump trucks, who are devious and reckless, which leads them into trouble more so than any other pack member. You could definitely tell that Max and Monty were the most fun characters for the team to work with, because they are the ones that cause almost all the accidents when they appear, with the standouts being On Site with Thomas and A Tale for Thomas. It was originally just Max, since he was the one to show up in the pilot, but I like that they added Monty to the pack, as their banter makes them more fun to follow, and just like with Oliver, it makes sense why they came back into the CGI series. Next up is Kelly, and I honestly don't have a lot to talk about with Kelly. He is a mobile crane lorry who has a good heart. Kelly is basically the leader of the pack, but even then, I don't really have much to talk about with him. His spotlight episode was fine, exploring his fear of the wind after he had an accident about it, but other than that, he doesn't show up much, and when he does show up, he helps or explains something to the pack, like a ghost story or the lightning tree. Not at all surprised that he didn't come back. Byron is a bulldozer who likes to show off to the other members of the pack on how to get the job done. Byron feels like the James of the pack to me, but it doesn't really do much. Even the episode where he is the main character, A Happy Day for Percy, just shows us that he is boastful and nothing else. Kind of a forgettable character, to be honest. Ned is a steam shovel who means well, but is sometimes very clumsy. Ned is my personal favorite member of the pack. He is up there with Oliver of having range unlike the other pack members, I would say. He is paired up with Oliver and Thomas's trusty friend. He has the coolest crash in the series in that episode as well. He is tied to Jack and Jack owns up, and we see that he doesn't say that he is the most important in On Site with Thomas, instead giving it to the operators.
They're in charge of safety. They're definitely the most important.
I'm kind of sad that he never showed up again in the series aside from a cameo in The Great Discovery. I would love to see how they would use him, but then again, Marion existed in the CGI series, so that's something I guess. Isabella is a steam lorry who cares a lot about the way she looks, but that doesn't mean she isn't useful. In her spotlight episode, Mud Glorious Mud, all the pack members run out of fuel and Isabella is the one who can get it. Even though she gets dirty from the job, she still sticks to it to the very end. Other than that, there really isn't much to say about her. Nelson is a ballast tractor who is overworked but always gets the job done. I honestly don't have a lot to say about Nelson either. I like the prop, and I think his episode is cool in terms of the production with him pulling Thomas to the works, but other than that, he is a character that exists, and I am not surprised that he didn't come back in the show after this. Patrick is a cement mixer who is boastful, and that is really about it in terms of character. We only really remember him for his crash and not for his personality, which makes the cancelled episodes even more depressing to think about. The final pack member is Buster. Buster is a steamroller who is a very imaginative person who always finds the most mundane things in life the most enjoyable. He is a nice contrast to George from seasons 4 and 5. He gets 2 spotlight roles in the spin-off with The Tortoise and the Hare and Thomas and the Moles that show his personality off quite well. I always thought that Buster wanted to join the race because he knew Max and Monty would be dumbasses during it and get into an accident, and seeing his face light up when fixing the soccer field is just so sweet. I love Buster, definitely my second favorite pack member. Finally, we have Thomas and Percy. I personally believe that they should not have been in the show so that we can see more of the pack and how they operate, but I will say this, I do think that they were handled pretty well, especially in the case of Thomas. Thomas feels like the Thomas we knew in seasons 5 and 6. We see his mature side throughout the show, like lending an ear to Alfie and Alfie has kittens.
"What's wrong?" he asked. "I don't like being small," complained Alfie. "As long as you're useful," said Thomas helpfully. "It doesn't matter what size you are."
And we also see him get annoyed when Ned drops the rubble outside of his truck.
"Ned!" shouted Thomas. "The rubble goes in the freight cars."
I also just love the running gag in this spinoff of Thomas being confused on the pack being excited to destroy buildings. It's just a great joke, and they keep it going for a good length.
"I love demolition," said Alfie. "It's when we get to knock buildings down." "That's supposed to be fun?" asked Thomas.
Today I get to demolish, called
Ned. "Demolish?" chuffed Thomas.
knock buildings down.
cried Ned cheerfully. Thomas thought it strange that his friends were always excited about knocking buildings down.
Percy has less going on than Thomas, since he shows up in a total of 3 episodes in this series. But I do think they nail his naive personality. But other than that, not much to say about him. Don't worry, Percy, you are still the best character. You are still the best character! I overall think that the pack could stand out from the main characters if they had more episodes going for them, which is something that is proven by the fact that we had those cancelled episodes. But if I were to rank the pack right here and now, Ned is my favorite, followed by Buster, Oliver, Max and Monty, Alfie, Jack, Kelly, Isabella, Nelson, Byron, and Patrick. Sorry, Patrick.
Concrete!
And that is all of Jack in the Pack. While I wouldn't say that the spin-off show tops any of the classic Thomas seasons aside from maybe season 6, I do think that this is an overall fun little slice of what could have been for a Thomas spin-off. It has the look of Thomas, it has the writing of Thomas, and it has the production of Thomas. It just strays from it, and sometimes we need to stray away from what we are used to. I would have loved to see what more they could have done with the pack if they went further into it, and while that didn't come true, we have fan content to hold us over and show us what these characters could do, and I am so glad that some of them came back in the CGI series till the very end. And that is all Classic Thomas talked about. Next time we talked about the show, we will go into the hit era, seasons 8 through season 12. This will be an interesting video to say the least. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and as always, have a nice day.